I recently wrote an article on actually emergency management, and that was printed or published by a publication out of UK called Apolitical, which is an online publication, a short article, and I asked Ashley to share it with you, although the article may not pop up, but the registration is free. You may have to register to get the article, but regardless, it's possible to do it. In that article, actually, I spoke about a couple of very important topics. I teach governance, and the other hat I wear is one of city council member and mayor, and I've served as mayor 4 times, and I'm currently mayor in the city of Rolling Hills Estates, and we understand how important it is to actually prepare for emergencies, especially given the fact that we live on a peninsula. Those of you who know the Palos Verdes Peninsula understand that we're kind of involved in almost all types of disaster, whether it's sea level rise that Adam spoke about, whether it's earthquake, whether it's fire, because we do have a lot of canyons and certainly a lot of fuel for fires, and about 1,600 acres or so of open space, federally protected open space on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. So you can well imagine why we're so interested in the topic and why it's important for us to look at risk. As far as risk is concerned, several months ago, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with General McChrystal, 4-star general, Army general, and he was invited by the World Affairs Council here in LA to actually speak about his book called Risk. And I think what I liked the most about reading his book, as well as speaking with him, is the simple mathematical formula that he used about risk. And he called it threat times vulnerability equals risk. To me, that was as simple as explaining risk goes, and as important as those topics are. So in our case, when we talk about disasters, we are not going to change the threat. I mean, yes, there are some factors that we have with respect to especially climate change we can mitigate, but we're not going to be earthquake free, or again, we can mitigate fire, but it's highly unlikely that we're going to be able to prevent completely fires. And also, of course, sea level rise and cybersecurity that you heard this morning. It's highly unlikely that we are going to completely eradicate the threat. So that is there. As far as our vulnerability, however, we have a better chance. We are vulnerable, generally speaking, but we have a better chance by preparation and therefore reducing our risk accordingly. So in my article, I speak about the importance of collaboration and the importance of collaborative governance. To a lot of my colleagues in local governments, this is not a foreign topic. This is a topic that we all do very well at the local level, whether it's the contracting model based on the Lakewood Plan, for example, or the interaction with our utilities, our partnership with Edison, for example, or other organizations that we have, utilities, water, gas, etc. It's extremely important for us to collaborate with all of them and not be silo-like when it comes to designing models for the mitigation of these vulnerabilities. So I spoke about specifically an example on the Palos Verdes Peninsula where all of our cities, all our 4 cities kind of joined together in preparing this plan, because getting off of the peninsula in the case of a major disaster affects us all. So we thought that it was not about being siloed, whether it was our school district or it was our cities or other special districts, the library district, etc., that we have in our community, we thought it was very important for us to plan together so that we have an action plan that actually transcends any kind of jurisdictional boundaries and making sure that our plan was consistent with saving lives. The fourth, and then I spoke about the 4 phases of emergency management. The 4 phases, of course, a lot of you are professionals in this and know that we talk about typically mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. So for the most part, most plans do this very well and cover these topics very, very well. And, you know, these are significant, of course, in any planning processes. And of course, looking at each of the disasters by looking at them as to how they affect our communities and how prepared we are, what do we have in response, and what do we have in recovery. So that segues into my next, what I called it added extras in my article. And that meant really not only the multi-jurisdictional approach to hazard planning, but also the importance of topography, geography, and the culture of the community. We are an equestrian community on the Palos Verdes Peninsula. For the most part, the major 2 cities of Rolling Hills Estates and Rolling Hills in particular have a very equestrian character. It's true that most of the trails go through the Palos Verdes Estates as well as Rancho Palos Verdes on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, but the 2 cities are predominantly known as the equestrian cities. Although Palos Verdes Estates does have stables as well, but we house a lot of horses in stables that are owned by the municipality, but governed or managed by a private sector, as well as, of course, properties that are deemed to be horse properties throughout the city. So the reason why I mention this is because management plans become relevant to the culture of organizations or jurisdictions. In our case, we have to think about how do we evacuate horses? I know that may not be the case for a lot of cities, but the idea of a particular need is critical to planning and management planning in particular. So we have, for example, run surveys of our community to find out who had horse trailers. How many horses can they carry if we were need to evacuate horses? The horse community is a very close-knit community, very volunteering community, especially for horse needs. And therefore, they were more than happy to participate to that survey to show us how many trailers we had across the city that actually would be activated in the event of a major catastrophe where we would have to evacuate horses. We also have facilities to be able to actually house horses in the event of an emergency as well. In fact, I offered that facility to my colleagues in the foothills when they had major fires and then mudslides, when they were evacuating horses, for example. The city of Rolling Hills Estates was able to offer both the capacity to actually evacuate horses because we knew what we had in assets, and also the location where we could offer for these evacuated horses to be able to be housed. So the example I give you is not necessarily for all of you to think about horses, obviously, but to think about the special culture and the various types of needs that your community may have, which needs to be in your preparation and in your plan. So that starts with an education process. What we did and what we do on a regular basis is we hold events throughout the community about emergency management, at least one very major event throughout the year that we invite, in fact, all of our partners that participate to to this plan with us and to come and exhibit, so to speak, and exhibit-like fashion to our community over a couple of days to make sure that people come and learn more about what they can do in order to help the process. How to shut off gas valves or water valves, for example, particularly, and how to evacuate, routes of evacuation. So all of these things become very relevant to us. And a lot of our communities, especially on the Palos Verdes Peninsula, are cul-de-sacs, which mean that they are abutted by topography that is not conducive for evacuation. So we think about those as well, and that's critical in our planning just as well. So these are kind of the special way of perhaps looking at plans and perhaps addressing the issue of the vulnerability in that equation that we call threat times vulnerability equals risk, which means, of course, by nature of us reducing that vulnerability, we also reduce risk as a result. We now have our keynote speaker, who's most likely very well known to a lot of us because in terms of someone who understands this, there's no one better than, of course, Assemblymember Freddie Rodriguez, who comes certainly from the first responder world himself, as he served as a first responder. That's his training. And then, most importantly to me, he is a colleague of mine. A number of years ago, he served on the Pomona City Council. So he certainly understands local governance, which sometimes lacks in Sacramento, an understanding of who we are at the local level and who we serve for the most part. And that, it's so critical to have that relationship between state and locals to be able to represent the people we represent. Public safety, of course, is his focus. And he is, of course, the not only representative of the 52nd Assembly District, but also on Emergency Management Committee chair. So with that, Freddie, welcome. Thank you very much for being with us. And the floor is yours.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. And thank you, Frank, for those kind words. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you this afternoon regarding the Emergency Preparedness Summit. This afternoon, I'd like to talk about the state of emergency management in California. From both my perspective as chair of the Emergency Management Committee and someone who has spent over 30 years as a first responder, and I've also had the experience at the federal level responding to natural disasters as part of a FEMA response team. First of all, as we begin year 3 of our response to the pandemic, I think it's important to remind everyone of our current situation and all the hazards we face here in California. With respect to the ongoing pandemic, the governor recently announced the transition to an endemic posture and released the SMARTER plan. As you know, the release of the new plan comes as we are recovering from the intense wave of Omicron variant that infected millions of Californians. The governor's SMARTER plan underscores the importance of vaccines and masking. The plan also includes robust monitoring of wastewater to detect future variants and the goal of establishing a private and public partnership to ensure that there's adequate supply of at-home testing kits. The SMARTER plan also includes a number of preparedness metrics, such as the capacity to administer at least 200,000 vaccines a day, maintain a stockpile of at least 75 million high-quality masks, maintain a commercial and public health capacity to perform at least 500,000 tests per day, both PCR and antigen. Looking back over the past 2 years, state and local efforts during the pandemic undoubtedly saved thousands of lives, and the state's approach resulted in the lowest death rate among large states. However, the pandemic, just like other disasters, had a disproportionate impact on underserved low-income communities of color, as well as older and disabled Californians. As you know, California is a disaster-prone state. With respect to wildfires, 14 of the largest 20 wildfires in California history have occurred in just the last decade. These mega fires are threatening the way of life for millions of Californians and destroying tens of thousands of homes and businesses. Last fall, when I visited with the incident commanders that were battling the Caldor fire, it was making its run towards Lake Tahoe. Cal Fire told me two things. The mutual aid system here in California is stretched to the limits. And the greatest challenge faced by the incident commanders was the lack of fire crews. In previous years, during major fires, initial attack resources were left on the line fighting fires with no relief for 72 to 96 hours. The lack of available fire crews is a major operational liability. For these reasons, I'm working with a bipartisan group of members to provide CAL FIRE with an additional 356 full-time firefighters and an additional 768 firefighters to staff, 16 additional fuel reduction crews. With respect to the probability of strong or major earthquakes, the United States Geological Survey and other scientists estimate a 72% probability that at least one earthquake with the magnitude of 6.7 or greater capable of causing widespread damage will strike the San Francisco Bay Area before 2044. For the Los Angeles region, the same model forecasts a 60% probability that an earthquake of magnitude 6.7 or greater will occur before 2044. As you know, FEMA's modeling for major earthquake scenarios in the Bay Area and Southern California forecasts violent shaking and densely populated areas that could result in over 50,000 displaced households and over 30,000 individuals requiring short-term shelter. California has also had a history of floods. Through the last year, with major widespread flooding, was 1997, the New Year's Day floods, which 120,000 people were evacuated and 23,000 homes and businesses flooded. They have in severely recent floods, local disasters such as the Oroville spillway in 2017. Since 1992, every county in California has been declared a federal disaster area at least once for the flooding event. Estimates suggest more than 77.3 million people with structures valued at nearly 600 billion statewide are located in areas that have at least 1 in 500 probability of flooding in any given year. In Central Valley alone, nearly 1 in 3 residents and crops worth nearly 6 billion are located in areas at risk of flooding. The state of California arguably faces the most complex and severe disaster conditions in the nation, and these challenges and complexities have grown in magnitude each year. In the past decade, Cal OES and our local partners have experienced every conceivable type of natural and man-made disasters, including drought, earthquake, flood, wildfires, mudslides, dam failures, cybersecurity threats, oil spills, natural gas leaks, civil unrest, terrorism, and tsunamis. One of my responsibilities as chair of the Assembly Committee on Emergency Management is to provide oversight and policy direction to Cal OES. As most of you are probably aware, Cal OES has the following strategic goals: anticipate enhanced prevention and detection capabilities to protect our state from all hazards and threats, strengthen California's ability to plan, prepare for, and provide resources to mitigate the impacts of disasters, emergencies, crimes, and terrorist events, effectively respond and recover from both human-caused and natural disasters, enhance administration and delivery of all state and federal funding and maintain fiscal and program integrity, develop a united and innovative workforce that's trained, experienced, knowledgeable, and are ready to adapt and respond, strengthen capabilities in public safety, communication services, and technology enhancements. As policymakers, we assess and validate these department goals. Also, we must consider whether or not Cal OES and our local partners have the resources they need to achieve our disaster preparedness mission. This year, the governor's proposed budget includes $2 billion and $541 million general fund and over 1,507 positions for Cal OES. The proposed budget also includes 61.9 million of central fund and 83 positions to address the more frequent, complicated, and often simultaneously emergencies and disasters involving numerous counties and regions across the state. The proposed budget also includes 30 million and 31 positions to establish the Fire Integrated Real-Time Intelligence System program to increase situational awareness, available to the state and California's mutual aid system responders and managers on all hazard events. There is also a request for an additional $11 million ongoing for 11 positions to enhance the fire rescue mutual aid system's fleet of fire engines. And there is also a request for $4.9 million ongoing for 21 positions to improve Cal OES's core logistical operations and enhance emergency response capabilities. Finally, the proposed budget is seeking over $5 million and 20 positions to enhance Cal OES's regional response capability and key partnerships with local governments and other local stakeholders. While these proposed budget augmentations are a step in the right direction to address my longstanding concern that California is not adequately prepared to respond to two major disasters simultaneously, I'm convinced that more has to be done. And I'm also concerned that there is way too much emphasis on building capacity at the state level at Cal OES, not enough the emphasis on building local capabilities. For this reason, I've authored AB 1721, which will seek to enhance the emergency preparedness capabilities at the local level. Key components of AB 721 will include authorization of a $500 million hazard mitigation program for local governments, enhance the emergency medical services search capacity by establishing an EMS mutual aid system at Cal OES to complement the fire engine mutual aid program, authorizing expansion of the urban search and rescue regional task forces and incident response teams, also authorizing funding to provide broadband capabilities to fairgrounds that are often used during disasters, and also authorizing funding for regional mobile field hospitals, authorization of a grant program to provide body armor for EMTs and paramedics and other first responders, and also dedicating a greater share of federal preparedness grants to local entities. As part of my commitment to building local capabilities, earlier this week, I met with California Volunteer Chief Services Office, Josh Friday. As you may know, Cal Volunteers began this program to administer the federal AmeriCorps program, but under the Newsom administration has grown to an entity that seeks to expand volunteerism throughout the state. And the governor's budget is seeking $20 million for two programs at Cal Volunteers to assist seniors and expand neighbor-to-neighbor networks in an effort to build resiliency at the neighborhood level. We must not forget about all the incidents that are local and you are to help until help arrive. We also must make sure that state programs and investments aimed at building local capabilities result in tangible local assets that can be typed and deployed to other communities in need. Before I conclude, I'd like to mention two other initiatives I've been focused on. First is my effort to address the critical shortage of donated blood. Earlier this month, I introduced AB 1709, which provides a $500 tax credit for individuals who donate blood 4 times a year. This bill also directs Cal OES to establish partnerships with the private sector to incentivize blood donations. I'm also hosting a number of blood drives in my district and with you and other organizations to do the same. Lastly, I want to mention my effort to address the chronic issue of wall times at our hospitals. Last month, I held an oversight hearing on wall times that have since been leading deliberation between healthcare providers and the governor's office of California Department of Public Health and Emergency Services Authority to identify short-term and long-term solutions. As a result of my hearings and subsequent meetings, I'm pleased to see additional EMS resources deployed to hospitals to transfer stable patients from ambulances to the emergency departments. While this is a good outcome in the short term, I remain committed to implementing long-term solutions to ensure EMTs and paramedics are readily available to respond to 911 calls. And with that, I want to say thank you again for inviting me to participate this afternoon. And I'm happy to take any questions if there's anyone that would like to discuss anything further.
Assemblymember, thank you. That's great information. I am looking for questions, so let me go to Q&A. The question was, thank you very much, Assemblymember.
I know there's a lot I talked about. So
I know.
I've covered a lot of basics for folks.
No, that's all good. I'm sure that if there were any, people would have posted. It seems like there aren't any, but this is a critical, obviously, especially like a state like ours, Assemblymember, as you mentioned. It's not an if, it's a when. and our preparation and our resources, especially at the state level, is really critical for local governments because we can't do this on our own.
Yeah.
We're stretched already as we are with a bunch of various responsibilities and mandates that we have. But at the end of the day, the state is a great partner in this, and we appreciate all that you do in that effort. If there is any, for the benefit of everyone who's here, Assembly Member, if there are any further questions or our special district or local governments to reach out on this topic, anywhere you can recommend that they can reach out?
I really just contacted my office, right, either at the district in the city of Chino or in Sacramento. I'm always open to suggestions and learning from one another, especially from previous disasters moving forward. But one thing, Frank, I just want to elaborate. I don't think people really understand. We talk about the preparedness of the state of California for emergencies or disasters. I always refer back to at the height of the pandemic here, 2-3 years ago, when it first started, our healthcare providers, hospitals, first responders were stretched to the limit, right? Everybody was trying to figure out what this pandemic, how to deal with it, how to make sure we're doing the best we can. And Frank, if we would have had that major earthquake along the San Andreas, what that would have done to our state, those areas affected, I mean, would be lost, right? I mean, because everything was already stretched out. So I'm always thinking of that. What do we got to better prepare ourselves moving forward? I know money is obviously going to come a big factor, but how can everything work together from the state level to the counties and more importantly to the cities? Those first responders in those departments are going to be the first folks right out there on those front lines providing services. So how can we make sure that every city has the resources and the counties working in conjunction with the state to be ready, because it's going to happen, but we just got to do more. We always got to be vigilant. Like I said, look what the pandemic did to us. And now we learned a lot from it moving forward. But what about the earthquake? Because I go to speaking events with folks and I always ask folks, can anybody in this room tell me, are you prepared at home for an earthquake? Do you have the basic necessities that we talk about? And I may get maybe a half a dozen hands raised out of a group of, say, 100 or so. So what does that say? You know, we still got to advocate. I know people don't think it'll happen, but it will. It will, but we just got to be ready.
Yeah, on this topic, Assembly Member, really appreciate your comments, because we talk to our community in terms of being prepared means really for you to kind of fend for yourself in the event of such a major event for at least 72 hours to several days, right? I mean,
yes.
If government may not be able to get to you, our first responders may not be maybe completely taxed and may not be able to get to you. So I know I have in my house 2 big crates outdoors in our shed with boots in them and name it to make sure that, including pet food for our dog, our cats. So to make sure that, God forbid, something like that were to happen, we can really live on our property for several days, eating, drinking, and that's really critical at the end of the day. So very much appreciate your efforts there. I'm looking at our questions.
Okay.
One of them says, is there any link to AB 721?
You know, I could probably have my staff provide you one and you can have it. I think if you go to my website, there might be a link there. But if not, feel free to reach out to the office. We can send you something there as well regarding that bill.
Excellent. Then there is another one I'm trying to, Kathleen, I represent a group of researchers from across the state who are interested in celebrating the 10 years since the Arc Storm with Arc Storm 2.0. Do you have suggestions on how we can get state support for such an effort?
I mean, reaching out to my office, especially my chairmanship of the select committee, or I shouldn't say select committee, on the Committee on Emergency Management. We can have my staff reach out to you and talk to you more about that and see how we can help with some type of funding or things of that nature as well.
Yeah, it looks like your staff is putting on.
Okay, I know I have somebody there. Okay.
Yeah, so perfect. It looks like Mike is putting up an email address there, so that's great. And also, of course, we thank you for your participation as we are about to adjourn. Assembly member, I look forward to seeing you. I know I'm going to be up there next week with California Contract Cities Association, and it'll be great to chat. But we really appreciate your participation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Frank, and thank everybody else for being here as well. And thank you for all the work you do. And once again, feel free to reach out to my office how we can help.
Will do. Well, with that, I want to thank Megan. If you're on, this is our second year together, and it looks like we're headed to year 3, given the success of this program. I really enjoyed it, and I think there was a great deal of information. I think it's hard to do better, but we always will strive to do better on a regular basis. And I want to thank Southern California Edison. Hike has been a great partner to us in all of the organization, as well as making sure that we were able to present this to our audience of 200 or so people that were on, and we had about close to 300 actually registered. But really, really appreciate that. Optimum, Seismic, the same thing. Ali and Tom, thank you not only for your support, but also your participation. All panelists, they were terrific. I thought 2 of my colleagues from here, from USC, are instrumental, of course, in this domain, and I really appreciate their participation. Our honorable guests, of course, 2 assembly members this morning, as well as now, recently Freddie, their participation. And perhaps last but not least, these things don't happen on their own. Even putting on a virtual program for 300 people requires a lot of man time and power to be able to pull it off. So I want to say, not only do I thank Megan's staff for helping us, but also my staff here at USC, and in particular, my assistant and my program administrator, Ashley Coelho, who does a terrific job in organizing this, and I'm eternally grateful for her work, as well as everybody else that I just mentioned. Megan, last few words before we adjourn.
I know we're going to work on getting those recordings available for people that wanted to see those or have those available, as well as PowerPoints and PDFs of presentations. So we'll work with everybody on that. And again, just so happy and thrilled to be able to bring this to all the local government leaders, and thanks to everyone for their participation and partnership.
Thank you very much, everybody. This is about 5 minutes before time, so we appreciate those who stayed with us. We still have a little over 100 people online, which is wonderful. And please reach out to us if there's anything we can do to help in connecting you to various resources. Feel free to look at all of the PowerPoints and the papers that we share with you. Feel free again to reach out to us if we can connect you to various resources. We'll be more than happy to do this. We're in this together, and our resiliency depends on our collaboration. So with that, on behalf of University of Southern California, certainly my program here at Sol Price School of Public Policy, I thank you all for attending. Thank you, and God bless. We'll see you next year for sure.